Hello, my name is Fredisha Darrington. I'm a doctoral student at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and I am pursuing a PhD in early childhood education. For one of my courses that I'm taking on children in society, we were required to complete a critical advocacy project to be implemented in our current positions. So today I am presenting on culturally responsive pedagogy. Now, this presentation that I have created is for professional development with secondary education teachers of grades 7 through 12. However, I really think that this can be used with any teacher and all teachers from pre-K through grade 12, because it is not specifically about content area instruction as much as it is about being culturally responsive no matter what content or what grade level you are currently teaching. So let's get started. Whenever I am conducting a professional development session or a sharing session, I always like to start off with an icebreaker. Icebreakers are great for breaking the ice. It is a really informal, very relaxed way of allowing participants and the presenter or facilitator to get to know each other. Even if the participants do already know each other or the presenter is familiar with his or her group of participants, having an activity like this really helps to get everyone in the right frame of mind, get everyone thinking about the topic, because your icebreaker is always going to hopefully be very similar in theme to whatever it is that you're sharing, whatever your topic is that you're sharing with your participants that day. This particular icebreaker, I've named it We've Got Something in Common, from the song that Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown performed together. And I use this because the participants are going to get into groups and compile a list of 10 words where they list things that they have in common. And of course, there are some do's and don'ts, and they're listed here on the slide, and they have a particular time limit because we want to, get on with it. Okay, participant outcomes. It's always important, and we all know this, those of you that are in the education sector. It's always important in any type of training, even whether it's business or corporate, it's always important to keep the goal in mind. What is it that we want to attain from this time together? What is it that we want to learn? What is the end goal or the end results? That's always important because people don't want to feel like they're wasting their time or they're just aimlessly completing some activities. Going into our fourth slide here, I have included information on the research. Um, I have in the packet that accompanies this presentation copied and given the participants an entire article on research on culturally responsive teaching and explicit instruction. And so these are just snippets or little quotes from that article to pull out and to give to the participants during the presentation so that they're not taking up a lot of time to read the article during the presentation. And it gives them somewhat of a foundation as to why I'm saying what I'm saying, why I'm sharing the information that I'm sharing with them. The research always tells how this information came to be and why it's important and why it's worth learning about and being and being applied. So you always want to give your participants, when you're doing a conducting a professional development session or some type of presentation, you always want to give them the why. You always want to say, well, this is why, I'm telling you this, or this is why we're doing what we're doing. We're not just taking it out of the air, or it doesn't just feel good to me, or I'm not just using what I think from my experiences. This next slide is more snippets from that article. All right, this slide is actually an embedded video, and the link is below it. And this slide is all about unconscious bias. It's only probably about 3 or 4 minutes, I think, and it may even be less than that, but it is a superb way to describe unconscious bias and how it surfaces in our everyday lives. It's a really great video, and it explains why our unconscious bias is actually important and how it is dangerous simultaneously. So it's a really good watch, and I found this video on YouTube. Dimensions of culture. Well, I took a play off of Capital One, What's in Your Wallet, but here we have a cultural wallet. And all of us carry around in our knapsacks, purses, wallets, you know, book bags, what have you. We're all carrying dimensions of culture. We have ideas about age, about sex, gender roles, just an amalgamation of ideas that we subscribe to and that we think are normal and that we operate out of, and we think it's our norm, and we usually think that it's kind of everyone else's norm, maybe with a few variations, but these are the dimensions of culture that people carry that we need to always be conscious of. All right, moving on. This is a continuation of the dimensions of culture. Basically, this is a visual I found on Twitter, and it's awesome. I just thought it was an awesome visual to show how deep the dimensions of culture can run for someone, or all of us rather, and how easily we can miss so much because of our unconscious bias and because of what is naturally difficult to see. All right, the next 3 slides are questions, multiple choice questions that I pulled from edchange.org, and they're just on classism, sexism, economy, race, different aspects or different dimensions of culture. And it is the activity to kind of scratch the surface for the participants and help them to see or become aware of some of their unconscious biases. So, like I said, this slide and the next 2 are all those types of questions, and we're gonna and the way I plan to implement this is to allow them to read the questions, read the answer choices, answer them quietly, and then at a later time we'll share. Another 3 questions, and the last 3. And here is where we will start discussing perspective and bias, and we will share our answers and we will reflect. And you will notice that throughout this presentation, I have embedded 2 more of these slides where after we complete some type of activity, because you want people to feel like they are participating. They're not just sitting there listening to you and being lectured. And after each activity, we have a reflect and share session, because what the participants have to say is equally as important as what I'm sharing with them. All right, now we're getting to the portion where we're talking about pedagogy. We talked about culture. Now we're talking about pedagogy. I thought this was important, even though I am sharing with teachers who are currently serving students. These teachers are going to be representative of various different tenures, or time periods of experience. Some with 3 years, some with 15, some may even have 20. So I just thought that this was necessary to remind teachers of what pedagogy is and the different uh, pillars or foundations that they surround that surrounds pedagogy. All right, here we're thinking about reflexive practice. So in this slide, what I want them to do, we're coming up on an activity now. And what I want them to do is think about their current pedagogy or their methodology and understand that being reflective is important. It needs to be almost like a knee-jerk reaction. And so that's what we want to share with the participants at this point. What I would like to share with the participants at this point is how important it is to be reflective at the end, middle, beginning, wherever you are in your current experience or your path or your lesson. It is just so important to be reflective at all times. So the activity is called Name It, Note It, and List It. And so what the participants, and in this case teachers, will do is at the tables where they are, which will probably be in groups of about 4 or so, I'm thinking, they'll compile a list of behaviors or actions that they currently use that does foster culturally responsive teaching and learning, because they're not doing everything wrong, and I'm not here to lecture them. Of course, with this presentation, I'm going to be just sharing with them and helping them to become more aware of how we can implement culturally responsive pedagogy. So of course they're already doing things, or have current practices, I should say, that are in line with being culturally responsive. And of course, at this point, they would reflect and share. And then hopefully from this, they can attain ideas from each other and write down those notes and try to apply some of, those practices that maybe another teacher is doing in their classroom. All right, here in our presentation, we are I am talking about culturally responsive education. This is where we identify what it is, what it contains, or what the facets are of it. And we really give the participants a really clear definition of what being culturally responsive is in their classrooms. Here on this slide, I have given them sort of like the foundations or the pillars, those things that hold something up, and these are pillars of culturally responsive education. And I've written a list of keywords over to the side because we want them to remember that um, all of these different characteristics are a part of culturally responsive education. You have high expectations for your students. You have you give consideration and not just consideration, but you show awareness and you plan and you practice around the context of culture. And here we see that um, we want the teachers to move to more of a role as a facilitator and not a lecturer or a taskmaster. And that takes us to being more student centered. And we want them to know that it is culturally mediated. So, here in this slide, what we're seeing is that there is a culture to the classroom. And in order to be culturally responsive, or in order to be inclusive and multicultural and diverse, and to instill competence and responsiveness from students, these pillars have to be in place. All right, in this slide, what we're seeing is culturally responsive education. It's like a circle, and there are pieces of a pie here, and these are like, they're not the pillars, but they're the different aspects that the pillars rest upon. And so these are somewhat like, if the pillars are holding up your culturally responsive education, these are the blocks that the pillars are holding up. And there's a video here, and I've included the link to the side, but here's a video of a teacher in the Washington, D.C. public schools, and he talks about what being culturally responsive is in the community that he serves and for the students that he educates. Okay, so the activity. So like I said before, having an activity to go along with each aspect or the different facets of this sharing session or this presentation. The last one I created based on an article that was written by my current professor and a couple other of her colleagues, and it included vignettes or scenarios about actual situations that have occurred in education, and they really represent a lot of different facets of transcultural or multicultural or diverse education. And those aspects are like transcendence and transformative and transcultural, and those types of ideas are where the vignettes come from. But I'm going to share these with um, the participants, and from there I will allow them in partners, 2 or 3 people, to read the vignettes, think about them, discuss them, and come up with 1 or 2 ways, or a variation of ways that they could possibly respond or react in a culturally responsive manner. Um, and then, of course, we will reflect and share. So, moving. This is next to the last slide. Of course, this is where I am thanking everyone for their time and providing my contact information so that they can call or follow up with me, or continue to get more information or more consulting on whatever it is they need, if I can help them with that, or we can find it together, or if they want to share successes with me or what have you. Also, a really important portion of the work that I'm doing for this, which is a case study, I'll need for the teachers to complete the survey, because it's one instrument that I'm using to collect data for the study. So they will complete the link before they go, and We have come to our last slide. These are just references that I used for the information that I have shared in this presentation. And I wanted to give credit where credit is due and um, provide all of my sources. And that's all. And I hope that you have found this presentation helpful, informative, and you can use it in some way or another with your group. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you want any additional information or you have any questions, you can comment below and give me a thumbs up, please. Thank you.